Hey, Brian Miller here, and thanks so much for tuning into this week's episode of Thursday Thoughts, all about human connection, which I know is basically everything that I talk about, but in particular, how to pause, embrace the pause, and what it'll do for your ability to connect with others and your business. I learned something. I need to never say again. That's something that one of my podcast coaching clients said to me recently after he finished editing his second episode. And it's true. We use filler words way more often than we realize. Like, well, so. So is one that I do a lot. These are linguistic crutches that we use either because we aren't thinking as fast as we're talking, or we simply got into that habit as children and no one ever corrected us. But it's not just words we use to fill the silence. It's phrases, expressions, and attitudes as well. How are you? Fine, thanks. And you? Hanging in there. We're so accustomed to filler phrases, they've just become white noise. So much so that we'll respond to the wrong question and nobody even notices. What's good? Fine, thanks. Why bother correcting it, right? It's not like the question or the answer was sincere. Somewhere along the way, society collectively got uncomfortable with quiet moments. But great communicators know the magic is in the silence. Here's a quote from one of my all-time favorite movies, Eddie and the Cruisers, Part 2. I was in the desert once, out in the middle of nowhere, absolutely nowhere. Just me, the sand, and silence. But if you know what to listen for, it ain't silent out there. I heard a music out there I'd never heard before, in the silence. Given the opportunity, most people will open up. Almost everyone feels lonely, and almost nobody feels seen. But they need to feel safe opening up, and that starts with creating space, emotionally and verbally. Too often we ask someone a question, but don't offer them any room to answer. We're so nervous that we've overstepped a boundary after just 1 second of silence that we barrel on forward with a new thought or idea or anecdote of our own. Next time you're trying to connect with a stranger, or really even a friend or family member, ask a meaningful question and then pause. Go silent. And keep waiting until they say something. It might take 3 seconds. Maybe 5 seconds, maybe 10 seconds. The silence will seem unbearable, but hold out. Don't break. Don't talk. Just wait. I'd say 9 out of 10 times when your conversational partner realizes you're actually giving them space to think about their answer and offer value without being trampled on, you'll be blown away by the depth and quality of their response. And when you start having real conversations about things that actually matter, you won't believe you've drifted through life, engaged in the meaningless drivel that make up the vast majority of our daily interactions. I'm not saying all small talk is bad. The key is to be intentional about our questions and attentive in our listening. This week I had the true honor of sitting down with Cal Fussman on the Beyond Networking podcast. Cal is a renowned interviewer, an award-winning journalist, a New York Times best-selling author, and the writer-at-large for Esquire magazine, where he spent decades chronicling the most incredible stories from the world's most influential people, like Mikhail Gorbachev, Serena Williams, Jimmy Carter, Ted Kennedy, Jeff Bezos, Quincy Jones, Muhammad Ali, Kobe Bryant, the list goes on. So what does Cal think about small talk?
I don't ask anybody about the weather unless a hurricane's coming. Or maybe I really am curious about the weather. But asking about the weather just because you don't know what to say and you feel awkward in the silence is not something that I would recommend. Much better to talk about ice cream. You can pretty much go up to anybody you meet on the street and you're waiting at a red light and ask, I'm from out of town. Where's the best place to get ice cream around here? and it's liable to start a conversation.
Yeah.
And if you want to take that conversation levels deeper, you can, because people will like to talk about ice cream. It makes them happy to talk about ice cream. And as they're talking about ice cream, it may make them bring up their kids going to that ice cream place and the favorite flavors their kids like. And it can lead to all kinds of very deep stories that tell you about the community. And so there are good questions that, which some people call icebreakers.
Yeah.
I call them ice cream makers. And you can use a question like that. It's non-threatening.
Yeah.
And start a conversation. But I'm not telling you, when you ask, where do you get the best ice cream around here, that you're immediately going to get a great response.
Right.
It's just opening the door for the possibility of the conversation going deeper, so that you'll get something that you had no idea existed.
Given his reputation as a world-class interviewer who often pulled deeply personal and tightly held stories from traditionally closed-off people, Cal is often asked, "What's the magic question you ask to get someone to open up?" And this is what he said to me.
When people ask, like, what's the magic question that will get somebody to open up, it's sort of like asking you, where's the make it sound good button? It don't exist.
The key to intentional small talk is giving people the feeling of being truly listened to, often for the first time in their life. And that is what human connection is all about. Embracing the pause isn't just the ticket to deep, meaningful connections. According to Cal, who learned this lesson from a world-famous surfer, it's also the secret to success in business. Because when a 50-foot wave crashes down on you and you're at the bottom of the ocean, fighting it isn't going to get you anywhere. Much better to close your eyes, let your body go loose, and let the waves take you to a new location. Then, when you've paused long enough, there will be an opening, a moment of clarity during which you can shoot to the surface. But you'll never notice that opportunity if you're kicking, flailing, and angry. You can listen or watch my entire deep dive conversation with Cal at the link in the description or the show notes. We discussed all things human connection, how technology has changed his career in journalism, and what he's been up to since the pandemic took away our ability to connect in person. If you've never listened to the Beyond Networking podcast before, I'm not offended, but this episode would be a phenomenal place to start. Cal is so much fun. He's so full of life. He's so open. He's so giving. I didn't end up asking a single one of my standard podcast questions. We just had a conversation, the same conversation I imagine we would have had even if the cameras weren't rolling. It was truly wonderful. I hope you enjoy it. That said, thanks so much for tuning into this week's episode of Thursday Thoughts. My name is Brian Miller, and always remember, our world is a shared experience. Every interaction is meaningful, and every person you meet, even virtually, is important. And we'll see you soon.